If those that are able would stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. It's June 21st, 2022. The current time is 9 o'clock. And the very first thing we need to do is, Tabitha, do you have any additions or deletions for the agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That motion passes. Our next item of business is employee recognition. I'm going to turn this over to our administrator, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Vice. Brad.
Good morning. I'll call these two ladies up. So we have two new employees today. Unfortunately, both of their supervisors are not here today, but we had scheduled this, so I invited them. We have Elizabeth Liu. She's a new social worker doing vulnerable adult assessments and care coordination under SNBC. She comes to us with a lot of experience in the healthcare world, but is a recent graduate and just finished up her internship. So welcome to her.
Welcome
and Dina Marthaler is the newest person at our front desk. She comes to us with a bachelor's in business administration and an associate degree in that, and has some experience in some law firms. So I think they started the same day.
Yeah.
So they're down here the same day, and so
Outstanding.
So they are our newest employees. So round down for an introduction.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Ladies,
I promise
welcome
you
aboard.
Ask them lots of questions.
Yes, exactly. So, no.
No, but
Welcome aboard. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you, Brad.
I think they're good to go now.
You're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item of business is the approval of our consent agenda. I will look to the board for anyone that wants, if everybody has any
So
questions.
moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Discussion on the consent agenda. Hearing none. This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson? Aye. Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher? Aye. And myself, Jelinski, is an aye. That motion passes. We then move into Camp Ripley. General Cruz. Good morning. Thank you for having me. General, good morning, and thrilled that you're here. Once a year, absolutely
Once a
thrilled,
year, and
thrilled to see you.
I'm about 2 months late,
Nah.
is what I would tell you.
That's
So,
only if you're keeping track of the
my,
time when we're not.
My team scheduled this on a couple different dates with you folks up to this point, and my schedule keeps getting crazier every year. So, commissioners, chairman, thrilled to be here. Thrilled to you're my last Camp Ripley update of the year. So we started early this year. We started in March and trying to get ahead of what is a very busy summer for Camp Ripley. And so this brief will kind of detail a little bit of that. For some of you, you can probably go on cruise control. You've seen some of the brief constantly. The format doesn't change, just some of the data. So as an introduction, I'm thrilled with your new county administrator. He spent a lot of time out there in the last couple of months getting to know us and trying to understand how the installation and the Yellow Ribbon Committee and things like that can make a difference. And so we are pretty proud of the relationship we have with Morrison County right now. So with that, next slide, please. So my mission statement hasn't changed at all. We exist as a military installation to train our nation's military for our nation's worst day, our state National Guard or our National Guard to support our state in its worst day, and maintaining positive community relationship while doing all that is the goal. And that's why I'm here today, is to continue to foster that relationship. Next slide, please. So the couple of slides here with some state leadership, just so you can notice faces when you see them. My boss continues to be Major General Sean Mankey. He became our Adjutant General in 2020, so he is almost 2 years into the process. And he's supported by CSM Brian Soper, who will retire this fall. So next year when we give this brief, you'll have a new picture there as the state CSM will be determined this fall who that is. Next slide. And then our division leadership has changed a little bit over the summer. Major General Mike Wickman went to Europe, so he's part of the European Command staff now, and so he was replaced by Brigadier General Charles Kemper as the division commander. Charles will get promoted probably this fall to Major General. And he works for Medtronics, so he's a traditional guardsman and very smart man. And then CSM Michael Whitehead has been the division CSM now for 3 years. He also is going to get replaced this fall. So you'll see a new picture there next year as well. Mike is the national leader in the DAV, and so we've got some DAV connectivity there as well. Next slide. And then finally, my slide, my picture hasn't changed any, maybe a little chubbier, but my M-Day Garrison Commander is Josh Seimer. Josh will cycle out this fall, so we'll have a new Garrison Commander, a traditional soldier back in there as the Garrison Commander, and then Marcus Erickson is my Command Sergeant Major, and he's here with me today, keeping an eye on what I say and do. Next slide. So our economic impact for 21 was pretty significant. Payroll was probably larger than normal, and that we'll see some of that in some of the numbers of people that we had. About $19 million worth of construction projects. We're really cleaning up a lot of construction projects on base right now. We'll talk about that. But we do have some upcoming investment as well that we'll discuss. But overall, 800 to 1,000 state and federal employees. A lot of them live right here in Morrison County. So, next slide. So in 2021, we hosted 550,000 man days of military training and about almost 70,000 man days of civilian training. And so that was a big year for us. Other years when I've come and briefed you, it's been around 400,000, 450,000 of man days. So that extra 100,000 man days was your National Guard soldiers on orders supporting the state. And they continued their COVID support. We had soldiers doing COVID testing sites constantly. We had soldiers we trained at Camp Ripley on doing long-term health care support, and they went in and helped at nursing homes across the state. The second line there, we continue to host in our DOD training profile other units that come from other services. So we had the 123rd Contingency Response Group, which is an Air Force unit that they have a mission of coming in and setting up airfields in the Arctic. So they showed up in January and February again to continue to train in Arctic-like conditions that we have here in the winter. And then the mobile diving team, the Navy unit, and the Coast Guard diving team both are doing their winter diving here. And the Coast Guard has moved their winter dive course to Camp Ripley. So we'll see more Coast Guardsmen or Coasties in the future diving under the ice at Camp Ripley in the winter. Our Armor Brigade was going to send a whole brigade to Kuwait. They ended up sending a reinforced battalion, which is 194 Armor, out of Brainerd. They mobilized last spring, and they spent 9 months in Kuwait as the quick reaction force for the CENTCOM. As the quick reaction force, they had soldiers in Jordan and in Syria supporting combat operations in Syria against ISIS. But they also supported the evacuation of the Kabul airport. And so they were some of the first actual combat forces on the ground there to support securing the airport for the evacuation. And we're pretty proud of the fact that they met the 82nd Airborne when they flew in and told them where they could fall in on the perimeter. So that's a storied battalion, part of the Bataan Death March, and they added another laurel to their wreath of importance. So the State Patrol hosted 2 academies at Camp Ripley this last year, and they're hosting 2 more this year as they continue to build their force. In September, we had the largest open house that we've had on record. And so we think it was because we're cool, but I think it was because by September, people just wanted to get out and do things. And so it was a great event there, the second weekend in September. And just based on the number of vehicles, we estimate we had over 6,000 people there. And then this winter, we hosted the Chief National Guard Bureau Biathlon last February and this February as well. And last summer, we celebrated the 90th birthday of Camp Ripley. We celebrated the 91st here just a week ago. And obviously, we're 9 years away from a pretty significant century mark for the installation. Next slide. So this is my promo slide on how the National Guard supports state and local government. And you've seen this before, but it truly is driven through the governor's office from a request from your sheriff to the HSEM. And the governor then writes an executive order that mobilizes us onto state active duty to do the kind of things that we do there on the right, and security, traffic control, evacuation, and in a emergency, civil disturbance control, that kind of stuff as well. We're pretty busy in the state active duty line through this last year. We've really become kind of the Swiss Army knife for state government. When they need something done somewhere, they truly turn to the National Guard first. And right now, we just had some soldiers come off mission up by the Rainy Lake, where they were filling sandbags up there for about a month, trying to help the property owners up there protect their property from the flooding. Next slide. So as we walk through some construction things, we have completed all the barracks buildings that we've been building now for 3 years in Area 5. So we got a bunch of them built, where we built a new headquarters building in Area 9, and the fire hall facility got finished finally, and we had a big open house for that here about 2 months ago. I don't know if all you got there, but I know Mike was there probably. And we had just a great facility for them, new living quarters and new office space, so they finally are complete and hopefully happy. And then we're working on, just like any other city, our biggest problem is where do we park all the cars that show up there, and so we continue to work on some parking lots and things like that. Next slide. As we work through what we're doing this summer, we are renovating Nelson Hall, which is on the historical registry. There'll be a separate slide that kind of talks about that. We're building some new buildings to store our military vehicles in. They're about done. We dug 3 very large stormwater infiltration basins, so we got a lot of questions over this last year of where all the dirt was coming from out of Camp Ripley, and why was Camp Ripley sending this contaminated dirt out and stuff like that. But what we did is we built 3 incredibly large football field size storm basins that all our storm sewers run into. And they allow the water to settle back into the water table rather than dumping it into the Mississippi River. And so the east or west of the ethanol plant, that low ground there benefited by getting a lot of that dirt as part of that contract. So we're in the process of building continue to build some support buildings in Area 5. We got the housing done now. Well, now we need to build the battalion headquarters building, which is what we're doing right now, some mess halls and some supply rooms. They're coming. We're in the middle of designing, and we'll start construction this fall on a rail spur into Camp Ripley. So as you come into Camp Ripley off the east gate, there'll be a switch off our rail line that'll lead to a new rail spur that'll run north and south there. And we think we can build, well, it'll be 4 tracks side by side. It'll hold about 60 cars, and it'll allow me to then load 2 trains at once, or portions of one very large train, all in our effort to get our armor brigade onto rail cars faster. So that's about $14 million alone worth of a project, and so we're pretty excited about that expansion, and we're trying to understand what the second and third order effects of building it. So we're working on the microgrid that we continue to talk about. We built the solar field first. We've added backup generation at all our substations, and now the microgrid, we're finally running the fiber for all the control processes. So when we're done running the fiber for that, it'll truly be communicate between substations, and we'll be able to balance the load that we're creating from all that generation. So that'll be the last step in making Camp Ripley, or having Camp Ripley have the capability of being an island and not on the grid if we had to. So, And then finally, another asset that's really designed, it was state bonding money to build a joint emergency response training center that came out of the state bond about 6 years ago. This is a facility that's built inside of the emergency vehicle operators course, that 5-mile racetrack we have. And it's a series of apparatuses built with the help of the state fire marshal for fire departments to come and train on. So there's 4 or 5 rail cars that are in various stages of derailment that will have the ability of being on fire. There's oil tanker trailer that can be on fire. All sorts of other different apparatuses are out there, all in kind of a training ground basically for fire departments. So we're hoping that we'll see some activity there from local and regional fire departments training there. Next slide. So Nelson Hall is one of the most historic buildings on base. It was built in the 30s. It was utilized originally as a post headquarters. It was the home of the DNR for the last 20 years for their law enforcement training. I asked them to move to some other buildings so we could renovate it. And we're in the middle of renovating and now we've probably put about $3 million in the renovation of this building. And we'll return in there this fall as the new post headquarters. So we're pretty excited about being able to take that historic building and put it back into shape and occupy it. So next slide. And then our museum, we continue to do design on the museum. What we found with the initial design is that the $13 million they approved in 2020 is insufficient to build the size of museum they're hoping to build. We have an extra $10 million that's held hostage in the current state bonding bill project. And so I don't know that we're going to get it to build until the state finds us some more money, but we're continue to plan the construction based on that $24 million size building. And so I think it'll become reality. It's like all things, it seems to take a little longer than what we initially thought at the beginning. So next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about past history here, and then we'll roll into the upcoming months. So in May we did some hunts. We had a great DAV Disabled American Veteran Turkey Hunts. We hosted the best warrior competition for the state and the regional, and picked some of our best soldiers to compete at the regional competition, and picked some soldiers to go compete at the national level that'll occur here in July. We flew a lot of helicopters around, and I had 3 battalions of artillery here in May, so we were kind of loud on the artillery side. You can see that in May of 22, we had about almost 80,000 man days that rolled through the installation. Next slide. June's been incredibly busy for us. You can see almost 100,000 man days in June, which, you know, if you look at that total last year of 550,000, that just shows you that we almost did a 1/5 of our business from last year in 1 month here. Besides units coming here, and we've had a lot of units come from that are new units that normally would have trained at Fort McCoy, but due to the Afghan refugees that were at McCoy, they had to find a new home, and so they came here. So we have been constantly, I think 2 weeks ago we had 9,000 soldiers downrange, and so a lot of soldiers, a lot of field artillery firing. We had a field artillery battalion from Missouri up, and meanwhile in the installation itself, we hosted our officer candidate school that just finished this last Friday. So next slide. The rest of the future here going forward, you can see July is back into around that 70,000 man days, which is kind of average for us in the summer. 100,000's a lot in June, but July's kind of an average. We'll have some more field artillery firing, and at the end of July we'll host our annual youth camp for our military connected youth. Next slide. August, we have some engineer battalions coming, and they'll do what engineers love to do, which is blow up demo. And so our demo ranges will be very busy and loud, especially if you're up in Pillager. And then the State Patrol is going to start their second academy, so we'll have a new class of State Patrol cadets here starting in August. Next slide. And looking ahead in September, obviously MnDOT will be back doing their snowplow training. we'll finish up the State Patrol Academy and enter October and November, which is typically our hunt season where we host people doing deer hunts mainly. Next slide. On the installation, we've seen this slide before. We have permanent party with the DNR, State Patrol, HSEM, and MnDOT. The top three are all housed in the Emergency Management Training Center, and that's really become the Academy Center. Both the DNR and the State Patrol are conducting their academies together in there at the same time, which has turned out to be a great relationship. Next slide. And then some of our community outreach we coming forward in this next year. We'll host our next open house in September of 23. We've spent the spring kind of getting back to normal with our tour groups. A lot of fifth graders came and learned about the environment and learned about Camp Ripley. We hosted our Planning for the Future event, which is a part of our tribal outreach with the tribes. An event where we bring high school kids out of the tribal high schools to Camp Ripley and expose them to some recruiters while they expose us to some of their Indian culture. We filled another 100 gift tags last winter for the Christmas gift giving here in Morrison County. We sent about 800 pounds of food to your food shelf from our soldiers that donated around Christmas. And then we just finished the Trolling for the Troops event here the first part of June as well. We had great participation there. I had 43 professional fishermen bring their boats up, put about 90 veterans on the water for a day fishing. So it was a great event again. Next slide. Our environmental program continues to be something that's noteworthy. They're taking care of all sorts of different things. Tomorrow we're hosting the DOD level training on how to do consultations with Indian tribes. And they picked us because we do a good job of doing consultations with our own tribes. So on that red square there, we have environmental oversight from a lot of different agencies. This last week, our National Guard higher headquarters is there doing environmental protection inspection, and we did fairly well there. And really, the only, like a lot of things, the only real problems we found were just human behavior problems that we got to continue to manage, just like any other organization. Next slide. And then they wouldn't be nationally recognized without a lot of great partnerships. Our base has got 5 new summer interns from Central Lakes College and St. Cloud. They're working right now, learning how to protect the blinding turtles and things like that, as well as all those other organizations that are just great partners. Next slide. We had a very busy spring burning season. With the drought last year and all the late spring this year, it was really hard to get going early. So my teams that do wildland burning burned all that stuff and colors there in about 2 weeks. And so they spent a lot of late nights doing some burns. But we do all that so we can protect our installation from having fires started by our munitions. And so all the stuff in light yellow there are things that we burn off just to protect it. And the red stuff we're burning because we are trying to influence what vegetation grows there. And both of them were very successful again this spring. We finally had some decent weather in the first part of May that allowed us to burn. Next slide. And then ACUP continues to grow bit by bit. We added another couple $1 million into the budget this year. So we're busy working with Bowser right now and with the Morrison County Soil and Water to execute some more enrollments. So we're well on our way of our long-term goal. And so not a lot to talk there. It's kind of a continue to roll kind of process for us. Next slide. My safety dude asked me to put this in the slide. We do have UXOs on the installation. Our impact areas are full of munitions. So we encourage people in the public not to pick up anything that looks like that. But more importantly, if you have something like that, please call us and we'll help you get rid of it. on an annual basis. We blow up grenades that Grandpa brought back from World War II and things like that. So we're an asset to help with that as well. Next slide. And with that, gentlemen, lady, that's the end of this update. Hopefully it was worthwhile to you. I apologize for being a couple months late and half the data being old. But truly, we're excited to be your noisy neighbor to the north. So,
General, no need to apologize, first of all. Secondly, I appreciate the noise and appreciate it when it gets louder. So continue with the noise. Gentlemen, questions for the general?
Mr. Chair.
Please, go ahead.
General, when you said you replaced all those buildings, we took a tour out there, a couple, 2, 3,
Yep.
4. Those are those tin buildings that?
yeah, so we've replaced, we sold probably about I don't know, maybe 200 tin huts out of Area 5, and we replaced them with CMU buildings. We got a long-term master plan that will continue to replace tin huts with those style buildings, and if they stick on it, it'll probably take 30 years to get it done. But bit by bit, you know.
Further questions?
Thank you. For
All
all
right,
you do.
thank you.
I've got a comment.
Have a great day.
I've
Yes,
got a
sir.
comment, sir, if you don't mind. I was there and took a look at the fire hall.
Yeah.
During the open house, and I believe everybody was there.
Yep.
Took a look at it. I know that this took a long time to get, and I know that you were part of the long time to get
Yeah.
process. Simply getting the agreement signed with the agencies throughout the county, through the state, in order to get that. That facility grew from, I'm just gonna say, from nothing to what it is today, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
It is, you know, and you got to thank Pat Boone and his drive as our fire chief. You know, we stole him from Randall, but he's had a vision all along, and he's been a dog with a bone pushing to it. So I hired him as a consultant initially, and then he became the fire chief. And the fire department there is one of the things that I'm very proud of, is an achievement that occurred while I was there. And the fact that we get called out, we were on the ground yesterday helping put out some houses here in town, that's my understanding. I don't know what happened with that, but I saw the initial report that we were going to support. That's truly what it's all about.
And the other thing that I just want to comment on is the rail spur, which I also know that has been a work in progress for a long time. That rail has been to Camp Ripley for as long as I have any idea.
Yeah, it was
Beginning
one of
of time, I
the
think.
yeah, it was one of the first things they constructed, was that rail bridge across the Mississippi was part of the initial construction, so.
And today to talk about having an actual, another spur, if you will, inside of Camp Ripley where you can store, I think you said 60 cars, to aid with loading, to aid for the world, if you will. Second to none. So truly, General, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your time. Everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have
you,
a great
General.
day.
Thank you.
You too.
And moving right along, our next item of business is going to be the sheriff's report, and I saw the sheriff just walked in.
See you guys, thanks.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic, thank you.
Good. So yeah, just here to present for the month of May. It's been a busy month, that's for sure. And usually when spring and summer comes, that's what happens. So as normal, I'll just kind of go over some of the photos that we take through the course of the year. And in this case, it was in May. We had coffee with a cop. We had this at City Hall in Little Falls. It's always good. We get our community partners together, and we kind of discuss the current trends, what we're seeing out in our communities. In this case, we had representatives from Little Falls Community School, Morrison County Health and Human Services, Hands of Hope, of course, Morrison County Sheriff's Office, and the Little Falls Police Department. So multiple discussions about drug enforcement, mental health, again, what we're seeing in our communities, and talking about prevention, treatment, and enforcement. In the next photo, to the left on the bottom, this gentleman's name is Kingston. He's 3 years old. He shows up with his mother at the sheriff's office in full uniform. And, you know, they dropped off some cookies, and the mother's like, you know, he's obsessed with law enforcement. So we gave him a tour of the office, and definitely he said he wants to be a police officer. So we gave him a tour of the office, gave him a tour of the squad car, and then he posed for some photos afterwards. So pretty cool. I think we made his day, and hopefully it'll be a lasting positive memory that he'll have. And then the other photo is our sandbox fill. We did that in May. May 26th, we filled 23 sandboxes. We brought in 135 pounds of food to our local food shelf. So we have our STS crew leader, Kim Lillimo, from left to right. And then we have Correctional Officer Caitlin Beto, Correctional Officer Michaela Geisy, and then our Administrative Specialist Darcy Okerman, all from the jail who participate in this. So this was done in partnership with Knife River, where we got our sand. Little Falls Radio, Morrison County Record did a lot of our advertising, so we're thankful for all of our partners. And then, of course, Morrison County Public Works allowed us to use their vehicle, their truck. So pretty positive. Moving on, you'll see that we had total complaints, 1,155. Non-criminal complaints, we had 1,074. As far as training, we had 4 officers attend conflict management. I believe it's supposed to say mediation training, not medication training, so I apologize. We had a couple officers, some of our investigators attend death investigation conference. It's always good to go out and just see what the new things that are out there that we can learn from that. And then we had 3 officers attend specialty impact munitions training, which is our less lethal training. So you'll see our criminal complaints, we had 81. Nothing really that sticks out. Our thefts were the highest. We had 20. That's going to be our 9 o'clock position in the orange. Just a breakdown on the thefts out of the 20, we had 6 from a building and a yard, 4 were gas drive-offs, 3 thefts from a vehicle, 3 thefts from a person, 2 were identity theft, 1 was theft by swindle, and 1 was a street sign that got stolen. You'll notice that our traffic citations, the guys have been doing, guys and gals been doing a knock-up job. I mean, they've been really proactive. It's busy, and they're being proactive, making a lot of stops, being visible, not only through the day, but throughout the evenings as well, and early AM hours. We had 355 traffic citations. I took a look last year at this time frame, we had 285. The year prior, we had 185. So you can see that they've been pretty busy and pretty proactive. You'll see our 2-year comparison. Traffic stops, of course, helped for our total complaints as that went up. Criminal complaints went down just a little bit. Non-criminal went up as well. Civil process basically stayed the same. Our drug investigations went down just a hair. They were just as busy, we'll get into that, but because of their active investigations, they're working, their numbers didn't incline, and our total inmates count went up. So in the jail, you'll notice that total inmates for Morrison County, we averaged 43, and then we house some outside counties as well. And because of that, if you take everything, including the outside counties as well as Morrison County, we averaged 47 inmates. Our out-of-county inmates held for other counties, the number was 7. We brought in revenue of $6,215, so it was a pretty good month. And I just talked to our jail administrator. We've been working with Beltrami since they're in the process of working a jail, or building a jail. And it's been a busy month as well for the month of June. So luckily we're able to house some of their inmates and continue that process. And then just to give you a breakdown to wrap things up on our drug activity, our guys have been busy, as I mentioned. From May 2nd to May 10th, they did some drug interdiction and traffic stops throughout Morrison County, kind of looked at where are our problem areas, what's the most reported suspicious activity, and things that are kind of hard to act on, but we can be proactive and we can follow up and get into those areas and be visible and start making traffic stops and you know, just making a difference, if you will. So in the time frame from May 2nd to May 10th, they actually had 12 criminal interdiction traffic stops, which resulted in arrests and taking drug possession. The following drugs were seized. We ended up getting methamphetamine, fentanyl, mushrooms, and marijuana. And a lot of that was spin off with search warrants that continue today. We did a lot of search warrants in the city of Little Falls. As you may know, and I think I've discussed in the past, we are the primary go-to for Little Falls when it comes to drugs. As far as VOTIF, Violent Offender Task Force, it's Stearns County, Sherburne County, Morrison County, Benton County, as well as the cities of St. Cloud, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, and Waite Park. But Little Falls is no longer on VOTIF, so when there's drug information that comes in to the city of Little Falls and or county, if it's ongoing, it goes to our guys. That information, that intel goes to our 2 deputies that are assigned to the Violent Offender Task Force, and they're following up on that. So it's been busy because the majority of our work is in the city of Little Falls. We're seeing more fentanyl, if you will, versus heroin. It used to be heroin laced with fentanyl. Now we're seeing a lot of pure fentanyl. It brings a lot of complications to our staff because, we no longer want to test this product. It used to be we would do field tests and we would get an immediate result from that field test of what type of narcotic we're dealing with. With fentanyl, it's so dangerous that if it absorbs in your skin or you accidentally inhale any bit of it, it could knock you unconscious or kill you. It's that lethal. So what we've been doing, if we're dealing with it on the street, if we believe it's heroin, we'll go ahead and test it. We'll have 2 officers testing the product, both fully masked up, glasses on, proper gloves on, and they'll test it. But if there's any belief or any knowledge that fentanyl may be laced with it, we don't mess with it. We'll send it off to the BCA, to their lab, and we'll wait for the results to come back. So that's kind of the dangers of the job and some of the different things that we've had to do to adjust. But main thing is we want to keep our staff safe, so that's why we're doing it. Outside of that, they've been busy assisting in St. Cloud as well. And again, doing more and more drug interdiction where we're bringing in all the investigators from everybody that belongs to this task force. So with that, I'll open it up for questions if there's any.
Questions for the sheriff? Comments?
No, it's going good.
Sheriff, good report. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Next item of business is going to be the Health and Human Services report. Brad and Cindy. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Have a couple of items for you this morning. The first, Cindy's going to talk a little bit about long-term care and healthcare services along with long-term care. I'll just let her get into it.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Cindy.
And you have the report in front of you. First page is just showing applications received and processed through the 128 or through April of this year. And the other 2 counts are for the entire year. That's an average of about 8 applications per month per eligibility worker. Next page is phone calls received, and they're starting to increase now that things are getting a little bit more back to normal. The next page is just active cases across all programs within the long-term care unit. And the long-term care unit consists of 4 staff. Medicare premium paid on clients' behalf, that's a total of 954 Morrison County residents that have their Medicare premium paid for by the county. The next page is just some information. You can see where it says adults 65 and older and people with disabilities make up about 16% of the people served by Medicaid yet account for 60% of the spending. Total payments from Medicaid in 2020 for Morrison County were $55,801,499. The next page just shows you the percentage of the population within the region that are enrolled in Medicaid. You can see Morrison is at the 18.9%. And the next page would be the county burial expenses. And I want to point out that 2020, that's an error. That was a partial year and I didn't update that. So the full year expenses for 2020 were $56,305.71. Currently, for 2022, as of yesterday, we've paid out $22,495.78, and we've recovered $570 so far this year. And the last page is just burial recovery funds for the last 2 years in total.
Questions for Cindy?
Just one thing that I'll make note of, that we still are under the federal public health emergency. So medical assistance is a federal program, so at this point, they do not have to recertify, and there will be a lot of work for both the long-term care and the healthcare units when the public health emergency ends. As we can see from our data, the medical assistance overall in Morrison County continues to increase, and that's just because nobody closes their case because they do not have to right now. So once we have to recertify those cases, we'll see where our medical assistance population is at.
Interesting. Oh, excuse me, go ahead, Mike.
On that note, Brad, is there any idea when they're gonna remove that emergency?
Well, the next one ends July 16, I think, middle of July. DHS has indicated that the federal government will give us a 60-day notice so that there will be ability to build a ramp so people we can move them off in a more organized fashion versus all of them. So I'm thinking they're going to extend the public health emergency, but right now it's slated to end July 16th without an extension.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Because weren't they gonna eliminate it a few months ago? But
They continue
pushing
to,
it?
they continue to push it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Cindy.
Further questions for Cindy? Cindy, I have one.
Okay.
The 55 million that you talked about early in your slide, is that an actual direct payment from Medicaid to the client, or is that a pass-through through Morrison County?
That is actually paid to providers, the St. Gabriel's Hospital, the clinics,
Horizon Health,
all
long-term
of
care
those.
services.
And
Okay.
that figure actually excludes any pharmacy payments that were made, which I don't know what that is for Morrison County,
Sure.
but I know it's a large sum.
Okay.
But they excluded that because they didn't know how to figure out exactly what the cost was for each facility, for Walmart,
Sure,
Coburn's,
sure,
whatever.
sure. But the 55 million then is paid out by Medicaid to providers?
Correct.
Okay.
In Morrison County is that
Only.
figure.
Only?
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Oh, excuse me, Mike, go
Brad,
ahead.
do we still spend about 110 million on that whole program?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of that. We've not received our I have to think because they're behind. Where are we at? 2021 cost report, I think, is what we're waiting for, which gives the overall total. This is a subset of that overall 100 plus million figure that we generally bring to board to talk about.
I guess the point that I always think is amazing when we're getting that 100 and some million, and I think our taxpayers pay about 3.5 million
Yep.
to receive that money.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. So,
None of those payments can go through to providers without eligibility determination by our eligibility staff.
right. Thank you for that.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Again, Cindy, with the burial, and again, Brad just brought up, it has to be, these people have to be kind of vetted when they get these dollar amounts, so it's just not like we hand this money out to them. there is a process.
Correct. They have to apply. We look at their bank accounts, any assets that they have. If they have, say, $400 in a bank account, we require that they take that $400 and apply it towards the funeral costs, and then we would pay the balance of the $2,100, depending, whether it's an earth burial or a cremation. The amount can vary.
And to follow up with that too, these are not, most people, the average burial is $10,000 or whatever. This is not that dollar amount.
No, like I said, it's $3,400 is our total maximum that we'll pay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, one more time, anything further? Cindy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
The next item on the agenda is the lost revenue ARPA funds. It's a resolution I bring forward. We have discussed this in planning a couple of times, and last week or the week before, we brought in the schools in Northern Pines to have further conversation. The goal of this ARPA funding is to partner with the schools and Northern Pines to pay for behavior interventionists in the schools. It would be approximately 8 staff for a total of about $500,000 over the ARPA funding lifetime. And part of the position will actually bill for services. So about half is going to be paid for through ARPA dollars and half will be paid through healthcare billing. And Northern Pines is the organization we're going to work with. They have the capacity and the organization to bill health plans based on Medicare, Medicaid guidelines. And so the request here is to approve the resolution to partner with Northern Pines, the schools, and our agency on a behavior interventionist to model for school services.
So moved for more discussion.
Got a motion and a second discussion.
Again, Mr. Chair, thank you. Again, this is something that we just did over a week or 2 weeks. This has been ongoing.
Yes.
Our administrator, thanks to him, he did a survey here months ago about what is the #1 priority that people thought, and it was mental health. I mean, there's no question about that. With what times we've gone through in the last couple of years, that this, I believe, is money well spent. And again, it's a need, it's not a want. And I appreciate everybody here that came aboard, and we got this finally taken care of. So thank you for all that.
Further discussion.
I just like to thank you, Brad, and Melanie, and Jeff for working with Northern Pines and working with the schools and coming up with something that we hope works. And we always talk about mental health, and you guys are coming up with hopefully a solution to help with that need. And I was very impressed with the ladies from Northern Pines also. They were great. And Mr. Weber from Piers was awesome, and appreciate everything you guys did.
And George did a good job of talking about how to kind of build back the school climate, given, the last couple of years with the pandemic. And so hopefully this will build upon that and help schools kind of build that climate again, so.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mike?
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, when the ARP money came out, mental health was one of those things on that list that they would like us to spend some of that money on. But this is a 2-year program, and there were discussion that what would we do in 2 years when this is over? Well, we hope we can find areas that will save money for us that might be able to transfer, or the government will possibly pay more to do mental health, and that's why we're trying to do this program for the first 2 years. So, thank you.
And again, I think it's upon us as we do this program, how do we build indicators, measures, strategies, so we can show to the board, to the community, to the schools that it does work, as well as see if we can determine other ways that this could be funded through third-party payers. And we know mental health in schools is talked about a lot when it comes to the legislature and the Department of Ed and the Department of Human Services, and hoping that there might be some support. And as you heard from George, they get really no money for mental health. It's through other sources that they get these supports, and it's programs like this that we're able to help them, so.
Thanks, Brad. Gentlemen, we've got a motion, we've got a second, we've got further discussion.
Good.
Hearing none, this is going to be a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Wincher.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
And myself, Jelinski, is an aye vote. That motion passes. Brad, thank you very much.
And I'd just like to thank the board, and I know George and the Northern Pines and the rest of the superintendents really appreciate this opportunity. We met the next day after our board meeting. they're very excited about moving forward on this, so they send their appreciation as well to the board, so thank you.
Thanks again, Brad.
Brad, I got one more question for you. One of the commissioners made the comment that it's hard to find people to do this program, and if for some reason we wouldn't be able to find staff to go into the schools, then we just wouldn't do this, or we do it at a smaller level, or?
When I talked to Northern Pines superintendents, we have $500,000 over 2 years
Yep.
to build this program. And we'll continue to come back to the board for updates and information. But also, we technically have till 2026 to spend the money because it's now been encumbered. Hoping we can ratchet it up to the point we want right away, but we know it might be more gradual. And so, because workforce might be the challenge, but again, I think Northern Pines is excited about this opportunity and hoping they can recruit and train individuals who are wanting to work in the schools.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.
Good day, Brad.
Next item of business is going to be extension. I think, and I do see Samantha.
Hello, Samantha.
Good morning, Samantha.
Morning, Samantha.
All right. So I don't have a whole ton to update on. I'm working as part of the Super Shelf Lead Consultant team to update and get ready our statewide food shelf survey. We've used this survey in the past. I don't know if any of you have heard of the statewide survey. It did 2017, 2019, and we were supposed to do it in 2021, but with COVID, it's got pushed back to this summer. But we're working on sort of fine-tuning some of the questions, adding some COVID questions in there. We use this survey to, it's aggregated for statewide data, which is used to impact hunger relief efforts across the state. But then also we do individual food shelf-like results. So that way we can work with the food shelves I'm working with in Morrison County. I work with them with their survey results and how to make improvements with their food shelves to make it more accessible and, stock kind of the foods their clients switching to the term shoppers. Their shoppers are looking for, which is at this moment really important. Their food shelves across the state are seeing a huge increase in their numbers. So we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of those shoppers and clients. So this survey, which is supposed to be going out in July, we're fine-tuning and pilot testing it right now. So hopefully once that's done, it should be ready to go out. I think our hope is July 8th. We should be kind of sending that out with some food shelves, and I'll be working with food shelves to help collect that data. My work with the schools is wrapped up. We did a survey with teachers at the end of the school year, kind of get their feedback on some of those health and wellness initiatives we did throughout the school year. Farm to School in the fall, Every Kid Healthy Week in April. We did weekly wellness tips, so that went out morning announcements every week. Fitness calendars went out once a month, and just some examples of those initiatives we did throughout the school year. A lot of great positive feedback and a lot of comments on things we can improve on or even add for next fall or next school year, I should say, including some, more strategies on, mental wellness and mental well-being, I guess, strategies. So activities for them to do with their kids in the classroom. Again, teachers are busy, so keeping these activities short, 2 to 3 minutes that they can work in when they have time. So we'll be reconvening as a group. I work with the social services, food service director, and public health. We meet together. We'll be reconvening in August to start getting that planning going for the school year again. I'm currently doing what's called a shared table training. So this is I think they're pilot testing it just in the Midwest states. The goal of this program is kind of to safely collect all the uneaten food items that kids they have to take, but aren't eating during the breakfast and lunch period because they're required to take 3 out of the 5 food groups, but they don't have to eat them. So if they don't drink their milk or eat their apple, they can return it, and then ideally we collect those food items and kind of get them redistributed to the kids or families that need the extra food. We're going to be working with public health, obviously, to make sure this is done safely in a food safe manner, and I'll be collecting data to see, how impactful this is with those families and kids that need the food, and also, it's supposed to also help the school food service with less food waste, so hopefully we'll get good data on both of those things. So I'm currently doing the training and for the data collection and how that's going to work. And we're going to roll it out, pilot test it in some of the schools in Little Falls this fall. I know Dr. Knight is in and maybe the middle school or high school. So we'll just do 2 schools this year, and then, once we find out our data, kind of make some adjustments, and then hopefully the following school year we'll be able to implement it in all the schools. I think that was pretty much all I had for updates.
Samantha, I have a question.
Absolutely.
You talked about the survey at the very start with the food shelves. How do you go about distributing that survey?
Well, this year, we used to do just paper copies in the past. This year, we're going to do a QR code or a link that people can, shoppers can pull it up on their phone, and also have paper copies as well. And then I will be there, ideally on site for most of the food shelves to help with any questions or if there's a language barrier or anything like that to kind of help some of the clients do the survey.
So the survey is actually for the client, if you will. As I walk into a food shelf, you're going to give me that information. I'm going to take that survey, whether it's on site or whether it's at my house, and
Yep.
get it to you. Okay, okay.
Yep, and then
Very
if those people, they don't have the time or they're not comfortable filling it out on site, they can take the QR code,
Yep.
the link, or a paper copy with a self-addressed envelope back home. And we also have a manager survey for the food shelf managers to fill out as well.
And this is going to be handled within Morrison County, Little Falls, Piers, and Motley, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Anyone else have anything for Samantha? Randy?
Thank you. Samantha, when you pick those teams when you go into school, who picks them? Is that you, or is it teachers or students of 4-H? Who picks those teams to do your project as far as to share the table?
Well, I brought the group I've always been working with a couple of years, the social services, food service director, and public health. We've kind of been working together for a couple of years, and I just proposed it to this group, and they brought it, my first thought was Dr. Knight, because they're a smaller school, they'd be easier to implement this sort of, or I guess, pilot test this project, and then Mary Bartlett, she's the food service director, she said they used to do something very similar to this pre-COVID, and she's slowly trying to work it back into the program, but she's only doing it, I think she said, I can't remember if it's the middle school or the high school. So we thought that would be the second site. It's already semi up and running.
I hope it's very successful.
Thank you.
Further questions for Samantha?
Thank you, Samantha.
Okay. Hearing none, Samantha, thank you very,
Thank
very
you,
kindly.
guys.
Take care. Stay
Have a
safe.
great
Keep
day.
smiling. Next item of business is going to be information technology.
Welcome, Amy.
Miss Amy, good morning.
All right, good morning.
Morning.
I'm here requesting to update the phone's connection to a SIP connection and add a cube to our existing phone system. This will update our technology on our existing phone system and enhance the redundancy, and then also save some costs for the county. I came to the planning session way back in May 17th and discussed this briefly. Based on that, I am here today and requesting that we can modify our contract with CTC from a PRI model to a SIP model, and then also engage with E+ for the cube licensing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said that key word, savings. Yeah. So, and if you could explain, the savings is great, but are we also doing better than we would be with the old system? So we're not only saving, but we're having a better system, right?
Correct. So currently, with CTC, we pay for what's called a PRI, and we're locked into a certain number of phone lines into the county. So we're locked in at 48 phone lines. With moving our contract from a PRI contract to a SIP, I know it's acronym, alphabet soup, but we can choose how many lines we want. So we did a study, a brief average, and realized that the county's really only using roughly 26 lines, and we're paying for 48. So when we move to SIP, we will save money with CTC's contract. we'll save roughly $2,500 a year just with that, by moving that down. And that's including adding the Cube. So Cube is another license that will add to the phone system, so there's a cost with that. But reducing the cost of CTC, adding the Cube, we're still saving roughly $2,500 annually after the first 2 years. This initial year is the implementation year, and then our contract is 5 years long, so an ROI over 5 years will be saving several $1,000 or a few $1,000.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Just
Matt,
just
go
to
ahead.
clarify on the 48 and 26, we have far more than 48 telephones in the county. It's just the number of calls at any given time. So when the survey was conducted, or the test, on average, peak, we received 26 calls at any given time at that moment into the government center.
That's a very good point. Thank you very much, because I know there's more than 48 or whatever there are,
And
very clearly.
I can add, Mr. Chair.
Please.
On top of that, because of the flexibility with SIP, let's say we get a high volume call a day, we can call CTC, they can up our lines for that day, that week, that event. We pay, the increased fees for that day, week, or event, and then we can drop them back down. So that's where I think Randy or whomever asked about the savings and the redundancy and efficiencies that we can add to the county.
I like it. Anything further? Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
And myself, Commissioner Jelinski, is an aye. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
That motion passes. Miss Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Next item of business is going to fall onto the administrator. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Vice. I'll call forward our CFO, Kurt, and any support that he needs on this topic. They're going to discuss the armor radios for the Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and re-outfit the county to improve our system here.
Excellent. Morning, Kurt. Morning, Mike.
Hey, Kurt and Mike.
Right, as discussed at planning on May 17th, Sean and Mike had brought the radios for the entire county-wide, all the agencies, and that number came to about 2.1 million. We were instructed to bring back the county's portion, which was sheriffs and public works. So Tony and Sean and Randy Lundgren and then Doug Regstead had been working on fine-tuning their radio lists and numbers, and they got back to us. And we had come up with the summary. Matt, if you want to put on that summary. So here's the summary, and it did change a little bit from last week. There's 10 speaker mics added, a repeater, which is for radios in Motley to rebroadcast into buildings in Motley since it's so far away from our county seat here. And then 2 encrypted radios for Public Works, as that was kind of brought up as a concern that we didn't have an encrypted radio on for the Public Works handhelds. So then that brought, after incentive, brought the total to $660,254.81. And that's what is summed up in the resolution today.
Mr. Chair?
Please, go
I make a
ahead.
motion to approve.
You've got a motion on the table. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
One of the things that with this lost revenue fund was to see if we can do projects that's gonna save taxpayer future dollars that we're gonna have to spend, and this is one of those areas where we're gonna be saving taxpayer dollars, in the fact that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is requiring encryption regulations, so we're gonna have to change these radios, and we felt that this was a good area to use them dollars, and I'm in full support of it.
Further?
Mr. Chair, and I think, Mike, didn't you say that Motorola would not, some of these radios are old enough that there's no more support for them?
That's correct.
And I think in our discussion, and I know today we're not talking about first responders and this other stuff, but some of the radios that we have that we're using today may possibly be able to be handed down to those people to use at a later time. Am I correct on that?
Yes, the encrypted capable radios we're looking at probably giving out to the 10 fire departments throughout the county, because that would give them at least one radio in their fleet that's encrypted. in case there was a situation where they want to talk in a private mode with other entities. And then as far as the sheriff's portables, majority of them are probably more used or heavily used than what a lot of the first responders are. So for add-on radios, I could see them used, but not as far as replacement.
Sounds good. And I also noticed that in your report there, not everybody got the greatest radio that is out there with the encryption. Everybody's kind of got what they're supposed to have, for departments and so forth, correct?
That's correct, yeah. The Public Works, the plow trucks, we're not looking at equipping them with encrypted radios,
Yep.
type of thing.
And this also includes the computers in their cars too, the law enforcement, correct? The radios?
Computers, the radios.
The
in their
radios,
cars,
yeah, yep, the radio part.
Yep.
Yep, okay,
Squad car radios, yes.
yep.
Further discussion? Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anyway, this is something that you brought up that we discussed it last week. We discussed this a lot more than just last week. We
Yep.
had great information from our sheriff's department, his staff. Again, I want to commend you guys for doing that. So this is something that, again, that we looked at very hard, and we had to come up with some type of solution to upgrade these radios. Like Commissioner Lemire said, this is a statute or an ordinance that we have to upgrade these. So again, thank you for the information, and I'll be supporting this.
I certainly support the whole concept that we have here. I do have a couple questions, though. And I have to look to Mike, and I have to say, the repeater in Motley, was that ever there before?
Yes, the upgrade is basically to put the capability of encrypting that repeater in the
Very good.
future.
Thank you.
So if the county were to go to encrypt it on their main, that repeater could be capable of handling it.
And then I had a brief discussion with Commissioner, with Sergeant Rexted, who was in the back of the room today, in regards to this, and I'm a little unclear because I'm kind of removed from this business, so I have to just kind of bluntly ask the question, is that in the event of any kind of activity, and I don't care if it's day-to-day or if it is the worst-case scenario that we can think about, as a first responder, and I'm just putting that hat on myself, with a first responder's radio, if you will, that is not encrypted, and I'm very clear on talk groups in the county. That part I still remember and understand. With my radio that is not encrypted, but works fine, do I still have communication ability with dispatch as a first responder without a encrypted radio? Do I still have communication ability?
That's correct. The whole encryption of the statewide talk groups and the BCA and FBI needing to go and encrypt it on those type of talk groups, that the sheriff has to migrate that. The question of what county encrypted talk groups are going to be utilized or generated, that's a whole conversation down the road, but at least we have the capability in the radios to move in that direction. But as far as I'm thinking at this point, a lot of the county interop channels are going to stay clear.
And that answered my question, and as I said, I had a brief conversation with Sergeant Rexted in regards to this, and as I said, I forgot way more than I ever knew, but that answered it all, and thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
Chair, you're our liaison for this here. You're the old ex-armor guy, and you do all that, so we thank you for your knowledge that you have here too in this here to give us the information.
Well, thank you. Further discussion? Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. I believe I'm first. I said I was going to support this from the very beginning, and I do support it. My vote is aye. Mike?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
All ayes, that motion passes. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I'm anticipating this is about 2 years before we see anything come to us with supply chain. That's what I'm talking about.
We're seeing spurts and jumps here and there, but yet some of the stuff has taken a long time. But
Okay, very
we'll
good.
get as fast as we can.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Kurt, that's it? Nothing else?
I think so.
No, excellent. Way to go. Thank you very, very kindly.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Sheriff Sergeant, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Matt, anything further?
Mr. Chair, that's all I have for the group. Any questions of the board to me?
Any questions for Matt? Concerns?
I would like to say that Matt came to the Fish Trap Lake Association meeting on Saturday, and him and Amy and Jean all showed up, and they did a wonderful job representing Marshall County.
Outstanding. Anything further for Matt? Gentlemen, it's time for schedules. Schedules are going to take us from June 26th to July 16th. June 26th to the July 16th. I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Monday, June 27th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in this room. There's going to be an open house with the assessor's office is going to describe and show off the Omni ballot system. I hope I'm saying that properly.
I think so.
Okay, on the 28th at 8:30 in the morning, we've got a planning meeting. At 11:30 in the morning, I'm supposed to have a phone conference with Central Minnesota Emergency Medical Services, our Joint Powers Board, regarding a new medical director. Our medical director for the EMS JPB has retired, so I need to be on a call with that. At 6 o'clock that evening is Planning Commission Board of Adjustments. On the 29th, excuse me, that's not for this. So I move to July 1st at 8:30 in the morning. We have a TSWAC meeting. Okay. On the 7th of July, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a State Emergency Communications Board Legislative Committee meeting. That is virtual. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board RAC event. That is also virtual. Saturday the 9th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I don't know where I got this, but I have an Americana event downtown Little Falls. Don't know what that is. July 12th, 9 o'clock in the morning, we have County Board. On the 13th at 8:30 in the morning, there's a department head meeting. On the 14th, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have an Emergency Services Board Next Gen 911 meeting, and that is virtual. And on the 16th of July is Piers Freedom Fest. Commissioners, that's all I have. Commissioner Wincher.
Okay, to add on that, I have an extension on the 27th at 5:30, that's gonna be here. To update me on the 28th for the Planning and Board of Adjustments, we have one planning application and we have two Board of Adjustments that evening.
Okay.
Otherwise, I believe I'm covered. Thank you.
Michael?
On the 29th, HRA, 9 o'clock at HRA. And the 11th, Yellow Ribbon Committee, Bank Square Building.
What time is that?
It's at 5 o'clock. And that's it.
Okay.
You guys got everything else.
And Mike?
On the 14th, I have trails at 6 o'clock at City Hall. And Jeff, I thank you for going first all the time because you take
Yeah.
90% of ours up, so
Love it.
thank you.
That's fine. Very good. That's all you have?
Yes.
And that's all I have. I will ask the board again, anybody have anything to add, subtract, multiply, or divide?
Mr. Chair, I know I had an opportunity, but talking
Got another one.
talking about schedules, Ron Specker from KLTF has invited me to speak 8:30 Monday morning to provide an update on the county and what we have going on, and what you know, kind of what's been happening here. So it'll be a part of their community focus program, and again, 8:30 Monday morning on KLTF. So
That's the
Excellent.
27th.
that is correct.
All right.
Commissioner
Excellent.
Wincher.
I'll be listening.
Great. I look forward to passing on to the community all the great work that the board has been taking on in the county.
Anything else? Tabitha, do you have anything for us? Nothing? With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 10:14. The date hasn't changed, and we are adjourned.